The DRAM shortage situation, it just got so much worse. So in my last two videos discussing this whole topic, I talked about how console and PC prices are expected to skyrocket as AI causes massive DRAM shortage and inflation, discussing all of the series of events leading up to where we're now, with myriad companies just hinting that they are going to raise prices, and that is becoming more and more of a reality as time passes. And then in a follow-up video, I talked about how OpenAI completely screwed over DRAM supply and prices, how Xbox is woefully unprepared for this, meaning that in the consoles landscape, Xbox is likely going to be the first to increase its prices yet again. And all of this comes from information relayed by Moore's Law is Dead in his video here that talks about how OpenAI made these really sneaky and aggressive deals with two of the big three major RAM manufacturers and how they're basically about to absorb 40% of the total RAM global output. And as a result, it's making everyone else panic, all the other AI companies, all the other electronics companies and consumers. And so everyone's holding up RAM. It's jacking up prices, jacking up demand, and supply can't keep up. We've already seen prices for consoles go up multiple times, and it's looking very likely that within the next couple weeks and months, it'll happen yet again. And already we've seen the price of consumer RAM double, triple, quadruple even. And at this rate, it's only bound to get worse, especially after the latest news surrounding Micron. Micron, for those who don't know, is one of the big three when it comes to RAM manufacturing and distribution. You've got Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. And Micron just announced that they're exiting the consumer business. Crucial is the brand that they use for consumer RAM, and they're basically abolishing that and focusing on AI and servers. So here's the full press release in question, quote, Micron Technology Incorporated, a leader in innovative memory and storage solutions, today announced its decision to exit the Crucial consumer business, including the sale of Crucial consumer branded products at key retailers, e-tailers, and distributors worldwide. Micron will continue Crucial consumer product shipments to the consumer channel until the end of fiscal Q2, aka February 2026. The company will work closely with partners and customers through this transition and will provide continued warranty service and support for Crucial products. Micron will continue to support the sale of Micron-branded enterprise products to commercial channel customers globally. And then here we have a direct quote from Sumit Sadana, EVP and Chief Business Officer at Micron Technology. Quote, the AI-driven growth in the data center has led to a surge in demand for memory and storage. Micron has made the difficult decision to exit the Crucial consumer business in order to improve supply and support for our larger strategic customers in faster growing segments. Basically, fuck you customers, because AI is where it's at. AI has super high demand for RAM. It's way easier to sell bulks of RAM to AI companies, and so we want to make money that way, even if it means screwing up consumers, because the AI companies are just the far better, far more lucrative customers. The statement continues, thanks to a passionate community of consumers, the Crucial brand has become synonymous with technical leadership, quality, and reliability of leading-edge memory and storage products. We'd like to thank our millions of customers, hundreds of partners, and all of the Micron team members who have supported the Crucial journey for the last 29 years. Well, this is one hell of a way to show gratitude by leaving consumers stranded in this utterly chaotic market now. But yet, to really give you an idea of what a huge deal this is, right here we have a chart from TrendForce that talks about the market share of the top three RAM companies, SK Hynix, Samsung, and Micron. As of quarter three of 2025, SK Hynix had a 33.2% market share, Samsung had a 32.6% market share, and Micron had a 25.7% market share. Already, the deal that OpenAI made with Samsung and SK Hynix will consume up to 40% of global DRAM output. And now with Micron exiting the consumer business entirely, the scarcity of consumer RAM is going to be that much more severe. From a business standpoint, Micron is looking at SK Hynix and Samsung make these huge deals with AI companies, and they got to get in on that, because otherwise they're going to fall behind the competition. Ultimately, it feels like that's what this is all about. But yeah, a significant portion of SK Hynix and Samsung's DRAM output will go towards AI, and then Micron will not be doing consumer RAM at all anymore, and they're strictly sticking with AI. And you can see right here in this chart that in comparison to the big three, The other RAM companies just pale in comparison when it comes to total RAM output. And yeah, this has become a major concern online because a lot of people understand the implications of this and how much is going to jack up RAM prices even further. Kami, for example, tweeted about how there's only 3 main companies that make consumer RAM chips, and one of them just bounced for AI. This garnered, 1.6 million views and, over 45,000 likes. People are also highlighting the short-sightedness of all of this on the part of these companies. Some folks are highlighting how when the AI bubble pops and they have all this RAM that they can't sell because there will be so much that they'll have to basically give it away, what are they going to do? Something else that's been highlighted is what a big role Micron has played when it comes to consumer side RAM, with Hardware Canucks saying this is bad news in relation to Micron exiting from the Crucial consumer business, especially since Crucial, the brand, is the biggest avenue for retail-facing SODIMM upgrade modules on Amazon, Newegg, etc. Some are even going as far as calling this whole situation the RAM-pocalypse because, well, so many of our modern-day devices that we heavily rely on use RAM. Everything nowadays is a smart something. Everything is now a computer. So we're not just talking about laptops and desktops that will see prices jacked up, not just gaming consoles, but, your smartphones, your TVs, your smart vehicles, you name it. But yeah, essentially everything is about to get pricier. This is going to have a trickle effect across the board. PC companies already ripping RAM out of entry-level PCs and scrapping the rest of them because it makes more sense to reallocate the RAM elsewhere. Posts like these are garnering tons of attention with hundreds of thousands of views and tens of thousands of likes. Here's content creator PC Builder highlighting just how bad this is. Quote, "I'm not sure people, especially outside the PC enthusiast space, are prepared for how much AI is going to screw consumers starting next year. Laptops, desktops, phones, tablets, anything that uses RAM or NAND storage. And the worst part is, AI is just a big pyramid scheme." And yeah, the effects of this are already immediately noticeable. If you look at the price history of, for example, this kit for Crucial RAM, you'll find that at its lowest point, this kit right here, 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, cost $151. Commonly was closer to the $250 range, but nowadays, especially with the recent announcement of Micron exiting the Crucial business, you can see prices have gone up to as much as, almost $550. Again, we're seeing prices double, triple, quadruple even. And so we're looking at a situation where, as this user points out here, RAM went from being one of the cheapest parts when it comes to building a PC to rivaling top-of-the-line GPUs overnight because of this dog shit, because of this AI stuff. But price increases are also coming for GPUs, which also use memory. But yeah, there's a whole topic now on Twitter about how Micron is ending Crucial consumer RAM and SSD sales by 2026. And you can see right here, scrolling down, people are freaking pissed, and they're super in tune with this entire topic, given the level of engagement these posts are getting when it comes to the amount of likes and the amount of views. This is bad. This is something that especially enthusiasts are recognizing, but your average Joe who is not looking up, news about RAM, they don't understand how this is going to impact just the economic landscape as a whole, just how financially unaffordable it's going to be when it comes to trying to attain some of the most common consumer electronics as a result of these RAM price hikes. The DRAM shortage situation has gotten so bad that you've even got companies like Transcend having to issue the following message to valued customers talking about how, data centers and AI is consuming so much of the RAM resources that this situation is expected to continue for at least the next 3 to 5 months. And while that's happening, they're asking customers for patience or, doing their best to secure the supplies that are needed to ensure they can make deliveries on time. But at the same time, they're asking customers to expect delays because of the ongoing shortage and the ongoing hoarding of RAM on the part of myriad companies. And that's on top of warnings that prices will go up, warning that future RAM will be significantly more expensive to accrue, and the potential impact that might have on Transcend customers. Honestly, this whole DRAM shortage and DRAM inflation situation lasting for 3 to 5 months is an optimistic outlook. I think it'll last much longer. Some industry analysts are predicting that this memory crisis and sky-high DRAM prices situation could run past 2028. That's an entire, 2 years or beyond. And then we've got companies like Nvidia also trying to go all in on AI, saying that they're no longer a gaming company anymore, but an AI data center infrastructure company. This is an exact quote that Exerto reported from a recent earnings call where Nvidia said that they've evolved over the past 25 years from a gaming GPU company to now an AI data center infrastructure company. So that's ominous. That highlights where their priorities are at, which is supplying AI companies. At this point, your average consumer, they're pretty much secondary to companies like Nvidia. And then beyond that, the RAM shortage situation has gotten so bad that Nvidia is seemingly no longer supplying VRAM with GPUs when it comes to their partners, company who take Nvidia GPUs and retrofit them into their own brand and sell them. Those companies usually get full-fledged GPUs with VRAM in them, but Nvidia seemingly is no longer able to supply them because of how bad the shortage is. So, companies like Asus and MSI who have their own branded versions of Nvidia chips, yeah, they're also in big trouble. So the end result is that optics on AI is the worst we've ever seen it. People are really starting to understand the negative impact that this technology is having, especially with the way it's being exploited, the way corporations are engaging in this gold rush. That technology has the potential to be used in good ways that are beneficial to society, but so much of its use so far has been basically stealing other people's work through generative AI. All we have seen is just consume a lot of electricity and tripling RAM prices and just making life worse for consumers. All we've seen is it output dog shit products, especially where artistry is concerned, attempting to use this tool and technology to replace workers entirely. As this user puts it, it is being forced into everywhere, costing people jobs even when it doesn't work, is straight up trash, or makes any sense. We the people are always getting fucked just so the rich can get richer. That's really what this is about, the rich getting richer. It's about them cheapening out on labor, cheapening out on quality, cheapening out on time that it takes to make good products. It's about automating as much as possible so they can output slop and garbage and still ask for the same asking price, fucking over developers and employees and consumers and just artistry in general, as well as the economy and the environment, all so they can make more money while having to spend less. That's the ultimate goal with AI here. That's what this whole race has been about. I mean, the kind of slop we've already seen with Amazon Prime having released AI-generated dubs for animes like Banana Fish, Vinland Saga, which already had an English dub with actors, as well as No Game, No Life Zero, and they sound truly awful, like truly abominable. I mean, this is the level of quality that corporations exploiting AI are happy with.
Skipper, no please! No, Skipper! Hey, stay with me. Come on, Skipper. Hey, you gotta fight. Don't die on me, Skip. Don't leave me, please.
I mean, just absolute dog shit. And then we have companies like Google who are experimentally, quote, replacing news headlines with AI clickbait nonsense, as reported here by The Verge, specifically through their Google Discover feature, which, on your smartphone, you swipe and then you have that section of Google News. In that section, we're seeing headlines that make absolutely no sense, that summarize things in such a context-lacking way that it basically just dishes out misinformation. Headlines such as Baldur's Gate 3 players exploit children and QI2 slows older pixels. Here are other examples of headlines that The Verge posted via screenshot. Steam Machine price revealed. It has decidedly not been revealed. Microsoft developers using AI. Just like the most vague headline ever. Schedule 1 farming backup. What does that headline even mean? AI tag debate heats. I actually talked about this in my previous video where Tim Sweeney said that Steam should remove the, made with AI tag because it's useless, because all development studios are eventually going to start using AI tools, when people are arguing that there's nothing wrong with additional transparencies about the ways that games were made and what tools were utilized and how they were utilized. But this AI headline is so poorly worded that it doesn't provide any real information. At best, these AI headlines don't make any sense. And at worst, they offer just some of the most egregious misinformation. I mean, this is quite the accusation right here. And that's the insult to injury when it comes to AI right now. It's not only about how it's negatively impacting the economy, the environment, how it's negatively impacting employees and consumers. It's also the fact that AI, as much as they try to push this stuff, just doesn't really work right now. It is not reliable enough to offer consumers any benefits. It is at best in alpha stage, but being promoted as finished products. Not to say that there haven't been more ethical uses of AI or uses of AI that are genuinely beneficial and that people will genuinely support. But those feel fewer and further between compared to what is being pushed to the masses by these major corporations who just want to cash in on AI. Now, fortunately, as the discussion surrounding AI gains further heat, we are seeing more and more, individuals and entities and organizations and companies push back. So, for example, right here we have a report from Popbase's Twitter account saying that iHeartRadio has banned its radio stations from playing AI-generated music or using AI-generated personalities as part of its guaranteed human program. So that's awesome. We also recently saw that Banana Fish's AI English dub got removed, and it likely has to do not just with the backlash, the huge amount of backlash it had garnered because of just how awful it was, but also because the Japanese studios behind these animes did not approve of this AI dub. Amazon just took it upon themselves to release this. So Kadokawa and Sentai Filmworks have responded with how they have not approved an AI dub in any form, that they were not aware in advance and are looking into it with Amazon. And then we have Japanese game studios now having the requirement of applicants having to draw in front of the interviewers in order to prove that they can draw without just using generative AI. The chief graphic designer, it reads here, this report from the Exerto at the undisclosed company said it is humans who can create compelling characters and graphics from scratch. And this is a topic that is trending and garnering a lot of attention, especially with this user saying that they love to see it. AI is not inevitable if we keep pushing back on it. The best way to kill a trend is to stigmatize that trend. And in the gaming landscape, we've seen that happen multiple times. With loot boxes, for example, while they're still commonplace in like mobile games and whatnot, when it comes to AAA games, once upon a time, every company wanted to implement loot boxes because of their monetization potential. But then the PR surrounding games implementing loot boxes and just the topic of loot boxes became so stigmatized that companies have pulled back significantly on that front, pursuing other monetization avenues instead, because loot boxes people saw was just basically gambling. And once it was recognized as such by the masses, companies decided that it's just no longer a monetization avenue worth risking. Same thing goes for NFTs. I mean, that from the outset was so heavily stigmatized that once upon a time, companies were trying to push for their own NFTs in their games like Ubisoft, and now we barely hear a peep about it. NFTs are as good as dead. And something similar may be able to happen with the unethical use of AI if it becomes stigmatized enough, where companies know that if unethical versions of AI are utilized and implemented, that'll yield just huge negative optics that will negatively impact their bottom line, then they're going to be disincentivized from pursuing that kind of avenue, pursuing that kind of work method. And the amount of AI pushback we're seeing right now is encouraging to see, whether it's, the Amazon Prime English dubs and how dog shit they were, whether it's all of the recent protests against how AI companies are negatively impacting the financial situation of consumers due to how it's jacking up prices for what should be affordable electronics components, or whether it's people protesting CEOs like Tim Sweeney stating that services like Steam should remove the AI tag because they're no longer relevant, because just about every future production will be using AI. This is a topic that I discussed in my previous video titled Epic CEO Tim Sweeney argues Steam should remove made with AI disclosure, and that goes very poorly. As people ask AI companies, what are you afraid of? Why don't you want to disclose that AI is used if it's so good, if it's such a positive thing? And it's because it affects their bottom line in the sense of AI being such a stigmatized topic now that they prefer to hide that stuff, to make that stuff under the radar rather than disclose information about a technology that is still kind of in flux when it comes to regulation, when it comes to what are ethical uses for it and what are standards we need to set that are good for this tool and its potential impact on society, rather than the gold rush, exploitative, greedy pursuits that are happening right now. But no matter how much pushback there might be, the gold rush for AI is very prevalent right now, and that's something we can't really ultimately change for the moment, with corporations like Micron exiting the consumer business altogether. And so stay vigilant when it comes to the economic conditions of electronics, especially where computing devices are concerned, as the shortage of RAM is going to jack up prices across the board. It's not just gaming, it's also just a lot of electronics essentials anything that utilizes RAM is about to see a reckoning. And all that can be blamed on AI right now are the very specific exploitation and unethical use of it, as well as just basic corporate greed. But yeah, just brace yourself, be on the lookout for how this whole situation develops, stay educated on this front. And that is everything you need to know about the ongoing situation with Micron exiting the consumer RAM business. And this is my take on everything. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on this whole DRAM shortage and inflation situation and the way AI has permeated all of this and the kind of impact that AI is having. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are on everything in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.